it's just important that we participate in this particular session so that we are able to also amplify our experiences. Moving forward, today's session, we are privileged to have Dr. Grace Nakate, who will be presenting in this particular session to share on her experiences as a faculty. And just a brief about Grace. Grace is a senior instructor at Aga Khan University School of Nursing and Midwifery. And I want to say that before Grace joining AKU, that is in 2012, August, Grace worked at Mulago National Referral Hospital in Uganda. She has also been able to work with the Ministry of Health as a trainer of trainees in the infection and prevention and control in Uganda. Grace Nakate started her career as a registered nurse, and you can be able to see as a registered nurse, and has worked with various departments at the hospital, including medical, surgical, gyna, obstetric, as an in-charge nurse. And as at last year, Grace completed her PhD at the UNISA, that is the University of South Africa. And Grace is currently the head of PhD support team in Uganda. So I want to welcome Grace, who will take us through the session. So if you have any questions, you can be able to just use the chat box and we'll take up that. So Grace, welcome, and share your experiences of using the strategies that enhance online teaching and learning. Thank you. Grace, you are on mute. Just unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ava. Thank you, everyone, Dr. Azra, Koram, and the rest who have organized this learning experience. I'm happy to present my experience on blended learning. I want to share my experience shortly. Yes, I'm Nakate Mary Grace, faculty at Aga Khan University, as it has been stated. I'm here to give my experience of using blended learning environment. If I can define blended learning, it is a thoroughful interaction of face-to-face classroom learning with online learning experiences. But in a complex way, I want to say that blended learning has limitless design possibilities and applicability to many complex situations. You see that it can be used in forum discussion. It has facilities like forum discussions. It has wiki, other resources like the assignments and interactive activities like the hot potato, the quiz. Students can turn in their presentations using Turnitin to check for any plagiarism. Before I started using blended learning, I used to deliver instructional content where I would stand in class, give instructions without the students interacting with my teaching. Maybe if it was there, it was limited. But with the blended learning, I see blended learning encouraging construction of knowledge by the students. I see that the students are involved in their own learning. They become productive members of the class and develop the independent long life learning. It requires me as a faculty to develop an environment or create an environment that fosters students' intellectual growth. My experience in relation to the change. First, I had fear related to adjust to the new educational technology, but I had the enthusiasm to learn. But still, there were disabling fears, like the use of the internet, activities, but we had support as a team of nurses that learned the blended learning. We had support from the blended learning IT group team and the team from Karachi and Pakistan. We had a 4 weeks face-to-face training on the use of blended learning, and thereafter an online support on how to use blended learning facilities and how to develop content on Moodle as a team from Uganda, Kenya, and Pakistan. I developed specific learning activities related to content and the learning outcomes. This was a very good learning to me. I oriented students to the blended learning environment and the site, Moodle site. I did this before the students started the semester. A week before our students start the semester, I always orient them to the blended learning environment where they navigate the different sources, knowledge sources, and learn how to work as a team on Moodle site. I've learned to teach as a team using blended learning strategies. I have taught students in Kenya and Pakistan using blended learning. This has been a great learning to me. When I look at blended learning, I start with the traditional classroom, which has been improved due to the knowledge gained from the teach team. Reading assignments have been uploaded and enhanced the reading activities on blended learning. There are self-paced content videos that have developed and podcasts where students can access the learning material during their free time. There are performance support tools that have developed, like the threaded discussions. This gives students an opportunity to discuss and agree on some of the content that is available in books and online. Online quizzes to test the students' understanding of the concepts before they come to class, so that when they come to class, I don't teach content that could have been obtained from the Moodle site, but I interact with the students to give them knowledge at a higher level, application and synthesis knowledge. I've used the standalone web-based trainings, the virtual classes, and I've used it during times of COVID. These are some of the interactions I've had with the students. I develop activities and students interact with the activities. Students do the quizzes to get the basic knowledge so that when they come to class, they interact with each other and with me, the faculty, to advance their knowledge. I've always given them feedback in their postings. Before COVID, I was able to interact with my students. I've created material that they've used, and I've used it in face-to-face. And during COVID, there was a change. I really benefited from the blended learning classes that I was able to continue interacting with my students because I've done this before. I had the pre-reading material. I used the Zoom meetings for the synchronous interactions with the students, and then used the Zoom interactive features to increase the students' learning. So why did I maintain the blended learning environment? It had a good pedagogical or rich pedagogy and accessible knowledge to the students, social interactions. I interacted with my students at all times, and ease of revision at the end of the semester as I create content for the next semester. And it moved some hours off the classroom to the online learning. When I look at the content that I create online, it is spaced. There is time for the classroom hours. We have time for the online learning. So, what are the benefits? High level of engagement with the students and colleagues across Akusonam. As I've told you that I taught students at Aga Khan, Nairobi, and Karachi. Flexibility in time and space, exposure to a variety of learning experiences, as the blended learning offers a number of learning experiences, and recognition of different teaching learning styles as you interact with the activities on the blended learning. Students were actively engaged in the knowledge construction with the peers and with the teacher, with me, the teacher, and with the faculty from Nairobi and Karachi. And I also had a feeling of increased interaction with a positive relationship with my students. But there were challenges still. I had a challenge of students resisting to adjust to the blended learning structure, as it required them to put in more effort, more time to create their own learning. But later on, my students appreciated this. Students always have a challenge with the internet while they are off campus. So what is my new learning? A balance between face-to-face and online learning depends on the course unit that you are using, you are teaching. When we look at some course units that requires hands-on, I've always given more time to the face-to-face so that I interact with the students and assist them, especially in research. I also teach advanced concepts, but I've adjusted the time for the online learning and face-to-face, and I've given 40, 60, 40 hands-on or like face-to-face and 60 online learning. We look at instructional goals that must be very clear to the students if you are to use a blended learning. The characteristics of the students is also very important. There are students that need help to cope with the online learning. These students must be given more time. The online resources must be clear and must be specific to the learning outcomes. I've also learned that I need to organize all the activities in time throughout the semester. And I must be flexible with the assignments to allow students personal development. As the students interact with the content, they are different and their learning capabilities are different. So I assist the individual students and give feedback as soon as possible to motivate students to participate on Moodle. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, Grace, for sharing with us your experiences of online learning, or blended learning for that matter. And thank you for highlighting very key sessions, especially in terms of what blended learning is all about. And you've also been able to give us your journey in terms of how you began in blended learning. and how it has really worked well for you before COVID and even during this time when we have the pandemic. And I'm happy that you've been able to point out some of the benefits that you have and the new learnings that have accrued as we move on. So I just want to open up. So before we close the session, I just want to ask Azra to make maybe some final remarks, and then Kuram will be running a poll for us, and then we should be closing the session. Over to you, Azra.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Grace, for this really insightful presentation on your experience of using blended learning during the pandemic. You have highlighted some important issues of student engagement, of using a mix of synchronous and asynchronous activities. You've also talked about how with the use of blended learning or the online teaching that you have engaged in, you were able to spend more time in planning as compared to the time that you had spent on planning a face-to-face course. And just the fact that you had spent more time in planning, you found that your students were also spending more time in the learning activities, and therefore you were able to see greater engagement. Some of the things that you have mentioned are somewhat similar to what we have heard from other EdTech Lounge presenters, the previous presenters, who have also found similar things in their experiences. You've talked about some of the challenges, that is the resistance from students, as it requires more time. And while as faculty, you were able to spend more time in planning, the students definitely, have experienced a challenge of spending more time in learning. And this is something for all of us to think about as we move forward, as we plan our teaching for the next semester post-lockdown. So thank you very much, Grace, for sharing your experiences, and the team, Edward, Khurram, thank you very much for organizing this session, and we will continue to work together to learn more about online learning and blended learning in our context. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Azura, and thank you for the support that you gave us during the time when you were training us on blended learning.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Grace, and thank you, everyone. Just